All right. Welcome, welcome. See some familiar faces joining in the chat here already. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us. We have a lot to dive into today. Appreciate you as you're coming in. Tell us where you're hopping in the chat from. Tell us, where you're coming from around the world, the country. You could say your city, your state. We're out here. We're going to be dissecting some serious stuff. You're going to learn a lot. So you're going to want to stick around because I am happy to be joined here by my friend of over a decade, known you for 2 decades, basically.
Yep.
Longtime brother here, Adam Ali. He is a friend. He co-founded Rant Media with me back in the day for some Rant OGs in the audience. It was a media startup we ran during the first term. And we are in a situation where we need a bright foreign policy mind, and Adams is the sharpest that I know. So I had to come and talk to my friend here. Good to see you, man.
It's great to see you. Great to talk about these extremely pressing issues in our time. And I think that, one of the most important things that we really need to concentrate on as a population that's been through it is taking a long view, because
Yeah.
that's something that's not happening in the highest levels of government right now.
Exactly. It's not. And we need to be able to take a step back and analyze the situation and really, really absorb it. And that's what we're going to do here today. And we see you coming in here. Okay. We got California, we got Indiana, we got Tennessee, Ohio, North Carolina. See you, Catherine, Stephanie, Arlene. Oh, okay. Odell, we got Mary. I see you all in here. What is up? Engage in the chat. If you have questions for us as we go, let us know. We're going to be diving into the situation in Iran, what happens next, what we can expect. And we're also going to get into a map later on in the show to show you exactly what is happening on the ground. So before we get into it, I just want to kind of rattle off where we stand here as of this recording, right? So it is now Monday, March 2nd at about 1:20 p.m. As we stand, we are day 3 of Operation Epic Fury. I don't even want to use that name. Epic Fury. Okay, I'm sure Pete Hegseth came up with that one. But basically, we have, the Ayatollah has been killed, right? He was killed in Iran, and now we see a mix of celebration, mourning on the ground there. It's a really multifaceted, bittersweet situation for those who want freedom on the ground there. But this also creates a power vacuum. Right now, there's a council temporarily running the country there. On the other end, they're retaliating pretty forcefully at U.S. bases. We have 4 service members that have been killed so far. The president says we expect more, and he also says that is just the way it is. Yeah, as if he didn't spark those deaths with his actions. And we have civilian casualties are continuing to rise, where at least 175 students were killed in a strike at a girls' elementary school in southern Iran. And then we have casualties in the hundreds if we include injuries and casualties in Israel and in these bases, right? So we're going to get into where Iran has been striking, because effectively they've attacked Saudi Arabia, Israel, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan. They are spreading this war throughout the region in retaliation, and maybe responded more forcefully than potentially the admin expected. And of course, here at home, Trump is giving insane contradictory analysis of what comes next. In the same breath, in the New York Times interview yesterday, he said we might get a Venezuela style regime, which would basically be the same regime, but like someone else that would be filling that space to cooperate with the U.S. And then in his other breath, he said the IRGC, the same security force that's been killing protesters, would somehow just hand over their weapons to the people, was what he said. And then meanwhile, we have a war powers resolution here that should come up for a vote this week. So that is just the summary to give you guys all the context of where we are at. Adam, what is your take?
Well, it's a lot in a 4-day period, I would say. And I think that, there's a term that goes around a lot, and that's speed run. And we've been speed running through this. And one of the most concerning things to me, at the very outset, there are many differences between the conflict that we're experiencing now and the conflict that we saw in 2003 and the run up to that conflict in 2003. And for all of that flawed run up in 2003, there was still a process in place to achieve congressional authorization, to make a flawed case at the UN, but a case no less, and assemble a coalition. We can make jokes about Morocco sending monkeys. We can make, about the strength of that coalition at the time, but there was a legitimate coalition. And what we're seeing here is an administration that is quite clearly responding to events based on politics.
Yep.
And there is one thing that truly annoys me about folks that are center left, is that events like this are manufactured to create distractions. A war is not a distraction. A war, a war that is unconstitutional on its face, deserves the American people's input.
Hmm.
And one thing that really struck me, and you and I, Ahmed, we talked about this. It was pretty clear that the administration was making moves that indicated a strike. If we think back to the Russian buildup in December of 2021, I could not help but recall something that I said prior to the invasion of Ukraine. You do not move assets of that caliber,
Hmm.
especially command and control assets, if you do not have a plan to use them. And all of this is happening ostensibly while we're negotiating with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge two truths that can be simultaneously accurate. The Iranian regime is brutal. They are responsible for the deaths of many Americans since 1979.
Hmm.
And we also have CENTCOM, Central Command, that was essentially created to fight a war with Iran. This is a part of the military. Their area of responsibility since its inception has been organized around an eventual confrontation with Iran. And that's not to take away from all of the things that I believe have been ill executed in this conflict so far.
Of course.
But what we have in CENTCOM is an organization that has that muscle. And it really doesn't matter who is at the top. CENTCOM wants to extract revenge, and understandably so, for the great amount of chaos that the Iranian regime spread throughout the region during Iraq.
No, exactly. And we're gonna drill down into each facet of this, because that CENTCOM point alone is something worth drilling into, and also everything else you touched on here, because that's one thing we can talk about is like the strikes themselves, while do appear to be planned. Well, there's no other part of it that was planned. There's no
Mhm.
day after plan. The objectives are shifting. Trump says that, oh, 1 second he says regime change in his recorded video, and then you have Hegseth and go out here with General Kane saying it's actually about missile capability and nuclear capability and not regime change. Well, they did decapitation strikes.
Right.
They targeted the center of power when during the day, because they knew that they were going to be gathering there, and they thought it would be a surprise because it was. They
Mhm.
thought that they would be doing the strikes at night. And to your point, Lauren replied in the chat here when you mentioned that there's no distraction. Like we shouldn't be talking about this as a distraction. She said she hates when people say it's a distraction because 8 hospitals have been targeted. There's carpet bombings. This is a main event. Yes, this is a main event that the president has pushed us into a regime change war.
Mhm.
Like you said, with even less of a buildup than Iraq,
Right.
and then expecting apparently a Venezuela like outcome where you're just gonna swap out the leadership of a theocratic regime with a population of 90 million people.
No.
Like it's unbelievable. And also, if you guys are here and you're watching, smash that like button. Okay. You have unlimited likes. All right. We've established this in these lives. You don't have a limitation on likes. Hit the like button. It boosts the video on the algorithm. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already subscribed to me, the independent journalism we're doing here. Also follow Adam. He's got a new Substack account here.
Yeah.
But he's gonna you're gonna be seeing more of him. So hit that follow button, smash the like button, because what we want to do here is not just hit you guys with like talking points or like partisan opinions on this. I mean, although we do think it was totally ill advised, we just want to our objective is to make you understand the scope of this. So we're gonna dive into all of this here. So you also agree it's about regime change. It's not about any of these other things, because if it was about nuclear capabilities, I thought Trump said that they knocked out all their nuclear capabilities in the other strike.
As a matter of fact, it was framed as an insult to our service members if you were to suggest that the battle damage assessment did not show that all the facilities were knocked out.
Mhm.
And frankly, the issue of boots on the ground have come up a lot.
Yeah.
You cannot facilitate regime change without, number one, being in close coordination with any sort of opposition faction,
Mhm.
vetoing, and this is something that Trump has said. They have this idea that they can veto anybody that wants to take charge. But what credibility have American negotiators built up in the lead up to
Exactly.
the outbreak of this conflict? And then, as you greatly touched on, the multiple justifications that the American people have been given. So there was intelligence that there was an imminent attack on perhaps Israeli targets, and now that we hear that the military in briefings to Congress says that was not true. The Washington Post says that Trump has said that the aim is freedom of the people of Iran. Freedom of the people of Iran. The IRGC, if we recall, still hold the guns. An analysis, wargaming prior to these events have shown that the IRGC elements, hardline IRGC elements, will be the first
Mhm.
to try to fill that vacuum after the death of the supreme leader, who, again, like it shouldn't has to be said, was a brutal
Of
authoritarian.
course.
But he is also known to have endorsed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that
Mhm.
would have put a cork in Iran's nuclear program. And he's been known to constrain the IRGC.
Yeah,
That
which is insane given how extreme he was. If you think the RGC is, extreme, or you think he's extreme, wait. And
absolutely.
I'm drilling on that one point, the regime change, because that that's an excellent point. The fact that like it's that there's a power vacuum there that's going to be exploited, and the administration has not done the work.
Mhm.
Also, there's no internet right now. They could have maybe focused to put Starlink access there. How can the dissidents even communicate if they want them to rise up? Number one. Number two, have they been doing the work on the ground? It's not like these other, the US is not a stranger to regime change or into using, CIA assets to infiltrate groups or convert people. Are they talking to people in the IRGC that are willing to convert? Are they making the moves necessary to actually build something to overthrow this? No. No, they have not. It's clear they have not. And then they undermine their own negotiation tactics. That there's no way that Iran's thinking their only option is war now. And I also just want to also say, yes, I agree. Like there is no one is shedding a tear
No.
for Khamenei. No one is shedding a tear for him. And now we have this power vacuum. And so what do you think that's going to go? What do you think the regime goes next? I mean, do you think it's going to be the IRGC that further consolidates power? More extreme elements are given more power here, or are the people going to? I mean, Trump already promised them he would help them before, told them to rise up. They got killed. Do you think that they would actually move forward with that?
I mean, I think that there will be groups that will try, but it ultimately it really boils down to who has the guns. And the opposition forces, they have just been burned repeatedly,
Yeah.
repeatedly. Civil society is completely organized around the preservation of the state. This is a tall order. This is an extremely tall order. And if we do not have like I've seen a lot of talk about restoring the son of the Shah. That is something that may appeal to expats in the United States and diaspora around the world. But we've learned from these mistakes. If you do not have the credibility within the country, then you're not going to be able to rally a country around a new form of government. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is bad as trying to install Ahmed Shalabi in the aftermath of the invasion of Iraq, but it truly brings us back to the reverberations that the lack of foresight, the lack of planning, the lack of intel on the ground, credit where it's due. The intelligence has been quite impressive. But this is the easy part, frankly.
Exactly.
This is the easy part. Israel did an impressive job of probing, softening Iranian defenses, providing intel that would allow the American military to understand the capabilities of what was possible in this decapitation strike. But it's a decapitation strike that, if we believe the intel coming out of the administration, leaves us with no one to negotiate with. And as Colin Powell famously said, if you break it, you've bought it. And unless that work has been done and we don't know about it, it's very hard to see how an opposition that is going to be, you know, respectful and friendly to the local population, as well as curb some of the violent behavior that the IRGC has been exporting for the last, few decades, is slim. It's quite slim.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the biggest problems is, we have an administration really that governs by content. You know,
Yes.
every boat strike in the
Bar right there.
and we have a president that we saw even in the first term who organized his strategic thinking on winning the day. And this
Yes.
when we're making geopolitical decisions like this, a geopolitical decision that, conservatively we can say could have reverberations that are equal to, if not greater to, the post 9/11 activities in the Middle East and Central Asia, that we're dealing on a scale of blowback that can be measured in decades.
Yeah, the reverberations are gonna be insane, and it's ridiculous because Hexeth even they're aware of the comparison because Hexeth said this is not Iraq, and, JD Vance also said, "Oh, well, Americans should trust this one will go better because the president is smarter than the previous president." So if that's what we have to rely on, big yikes on feeling comfortable with this president's IQ being higher than past presidents. Um, are you, Arlene, saying that this is a regime behaving like a regime? Yes, the Trump admin is behaving like a regime in a lot of ways. And also, if you guys are in here, if you have questions for us, ask questions. We'll be reading the chats. We'll be talking to you. Smash
Absolutely.
the like button. We're gonna get right now. We're focusing on understanding this. We're gonna get into some of the politics of this. Trump's betrayal of his base. The way that the American plurality opposes this already. How the appetite for this stuff just doesn't exist in America, and how we don't want regime change wars anymore. So we're gonna get to that in a second. But first, I wanted to show you all just kind of the lay of the land and give you a map of what we're seeing here. And so basically, what we have these are strikes where this is all the strikes that have occurred. The CNN has this great map here where you can see Iran's retaliation and the U.S. Israeli strikes in Iran. So we have this is where the U.S. and Israeli alliance has strike. And then you have the Strait of Hormuz down here, which they have blocked, which is 20% of America's oil, not America's, the world oil supply in the Strait of Hormuz. But as you can see here, Iran is already striked a significant amount. This is where the 4 service members were killed here in Kuwait, right? And that's our base there. And then you have Bahrain. They've striked. They've striked the UAE. They've striked pretty much all of our Arab allies. And Adam, I mean, when you look at this map and you look at the destabilization this could cause, Iran is not Iraq. Look at first off the size of the country. So like just comparing the destabilization that happened after Iraq, after Saddam regime change, where of course there was also celebration because Saddam was no one shedding a tear for him, just like no one is shedding a tear for a supreme leader in Iran today. There is a destabilization of the region there. Could you imagine what would happen here with this population in Iran of 90 million people, with this geography, were to be destabilized and not have a stable regime? So when you're looking at this map and Iran's retaliation and the way they're striking our Arab allies, what do you think are the reverberations of this?
I think it really is going to depend on who tries to fill that vacuum. And one thing that is an instant concern of mine is that Iran is a Sunni population, and Iraq is a majority Sunni
Mhm.
population. And if you have a hardline government in Iran that fills this vacuum, you are going to see a great effort to make Iraq once again a buffer state between some of the Sunni powers that are to its geographical west, you know, and south, for instance, Saudi has historically acted as a counterweight to Iranian influence. And this goes back decades. Again, when dealing with an administration and frankly a culture that operates at the speed of the post, we really, really owe ourselves all a favor to take a step back and understand the individual motivations
Yeah.
throughout these countries. You know, just alone, Iran has lost a major ally in Syria.
Mhm.
And that long Syrian civil war has destabilized the economies of many. We talk a lot about the refugee crisis in Europe, which is very important. But what is really under discussed in Western media is how much the stress of the civil war in Syria has affected countries like Jordan, where there has been appreciable demographic change. These are regimes that are already under a great deal of stress. And so we are in the aftermath of 25 years of high intensity conflict that is now renewed from a state that is on the verge of losing a regime that has stood in place since 1979. The unpredictability is just it's off the charts. And I wish we could have more confidence that there were people in the room that understood the consequences.
No, exactly. And we're seeing your questions come in here. Lauren, gonna you're asking how MAGA is feeling about this. We're probably gonna dedicate the last 10 minutes of this to the politics themselves and what's going on in the MAGA coalition, the fractures there, and the politics of all of this ahead of the midterm. So stick around if you want that as well. We're just trying to inform you on the lay of the land, and get you to really be informed on what's going on. Also, ask questions about any of this. We got a foreign policy guru over here in my brother Adam Ali. And if you have not, subscribe. This is independent journalism. Become a paid subscriber right there at the top. Ahmed Baba News. Y'all know I've been doing this work. And follow my brother Adam on here. He's got a new Substack account.
Yeah.
Show my man some love over here. Give him a follow. Engage with him on here. You're gonna be seeing him more often. So all right, great. So we've got this lay of the land here. You're right. That's all spot on. Also, there's more war. There's more fronts of the war being opened up with Israel attacking Hezbollah and Lebanon. The Lebanese government actually they actually succumbed to their demand and designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organ, ban them basically. I saw
Yeah.
that happen today, which is important. So Hezbollah has really been weakening. So Iran's proxies are weakening. So militarily, people are going to deem this a success. But you're right. What this is really about is the broader um, the broader ramifications here. And if you look, for example, Strait of Hormuz, CNN has this great graphic here where it's like this is where the oil this is what 20% of the world's oil supply looks like, and it goes through this strait. And you're already seeing the impacts on oil prices today, markets, futures. And what are your thoughts on that?
I think closing the strait is one of the biggest moves that Iran has in their toolkit. And we've also heard that the president has dedicated to eliminating Iran's navy. Um, and so blocking the strait is going to have an appreciable effect of on oil prices. But I'm more concerned, frankly, about attacks on the refineries in Saudi Arabia. One of the things that really uh, surprised me, frankly, it did surprise me, was that a Shahed drone, an Iranian drone, was able to take out a radar dome at the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain.
Mhm.
Um, that we have been seeing Shaheds being used in Ukraine for the entirety of the war, and they've gotten pretty good at countering them. So I'm disturbed by the potential hubris. War is messy. Um, And I think that I'm also very I'm disturbed by the overconfidence that Trump's magnificent luck, frankly, in his military adventurism in his second term has brought to him. He has this belief, in my opinion, that he's finally gotten the civilian leaders and the military leaders around him that will execute the plans that he believes are right. And then we know that Trump, he thinks in oil, he thinks in steam. He has a
Mhm.
very 1980s and prior view of how the world works. And absolutely, Leah, luck runs out. And unfortunately, tragically, we've started to see that. There
Yep.
are bodies that will be coming home to Dover. This is real. This
Yeah.
is not a smash and grab. And the implications of disrupting this very specific country, um, when all indications were that Iran was negotiating in good faith, you know?
Yep.
And we had a signed agreement. We must go back to that. We had a signed agreement in place
Yes. Exactly.
with a strong sanctions regime, a strong inspection regime that resulted in 0 deaths. And again, we're going from a place where we talked about a few weeks ago, the program completely obliterated, to a multiple justifications that are given to the people. From freedom of the people, we can end it in a few days, just like we did in Venezuela. And 4 to 5 weeks. I'm sorry, but all I can think about is Putin saying this is going to be a 3-day special military operation.
Exactly, exactly, and, on that note, Leah Anderson's asking whether or not, boots on the ground will happen. I mean, it could. It could, and because given how the ramifications that were clearly not taken into account, and that's what it comes down to here is also, hey, Kimmy, when you're saying hi to us in the chat there, what's up? Everybody, keep hitting that like button. We're out here trying to spread some truth. All right, now the moment you guys been waiting for, the Cook Donald segment. So we are going to talk about our guy Donald Trump here, not our guy, someone else's. But he, like you said, he thinks in these trying to win the day. He can't. You yesterday was insane to me because he was literally doing what Obama used to do, maybe at his table, right? He would sit around his advisors and he would workshop the ideas for maybe a way to communicate a strike, or and instead would try. I hate to even compare it to Obama, but like what what presidents do with their advisors, Trump was doing to reporters and just workshopping ideas for how this war should be justified, what could happen next. One reporter he's saying a couple days. New York Times, he's saying multiple things at the same time. Oh, we're gonna IRGC's gonna give up their weapons. Or we might just work with the other regime. We might get Venezuela. Who knows? He really is riding high off the Venezuela thing and the high of their rehemisphering Project 2025, might equals right methodology they brought to foreign policy. And he's out here just workshopping stuff. I just saw a part of at the end of his he didn't even give a standalone presser. I just also have to note, like, we went
Yeah.
days without a live remarks from the president. We had those weird in middle of the night recorded videos instead of him communicating directly to us. And then when we finally got him, it was at the beginning of a Medal of Honor ceremony. So we didn't get designated time. This is after he insensitively said, "Oh, that's the way it is. We're going to lose lives," or whatever. And then now he's out here not giving us concrete justifications. It's shifting justifications. And you're right to just bring it up. Like the JCPOA, Obama's Iran deal was working and they were abiding by it. Trump tore it up because he didn't like Obama and he wanted to erode his legacy and he's jealous of the man. And now because of that, we are now nearly a decade after that move, um dealing with the ramifications of that. Trump creates an issue and then now is pretending he's solving it. And then but the thing is they weren't actually, even the other justification doesn't work because there aren't centrifuges that are capable of creating nuclear weapons at the moment. They're maybe up to a decade away from long range missiles that could strike the US. So there was just no justification other than Donald want power, Donald feels strong, Donald attack
Right.
Iran. Like that's what we're dealing with here. And the American people aren't buying it at all.
They aren't. They aren't. And and you have to, again, to go back to the post 9/11 period when we were dealing with worldwide goodwill. We actually received offers of assistance from Iran itself in the aftermath of 9/11, from Russia in the aftermath of 9/11. And, I'm not naive to say that those offers of assistance were all on the level.
Yeah.
They received offers of assistance. And it does an incredible amount of damage to the credibility of the United States going forward because of this action right here. This
Mhm.
action right here, which is usually worked at the lower levels of an administration. It's worked by the folks that are on the front lines of the State Department, in the front lines of the Pentagon, and it moves upward. And that's where the decision making happens. From what we're seeing from the administration is they're flying by the seat of the pants and retroactively making the decision for the American people. And that's why we look at early polling, and the early polling is dismal for the start of any sort of military action. We're not seeing any sort of rally around the flag effect for Donald Trump right now. And if he thought that this was going to work out politically and that he could use the might of America to somehow flex his power, I think he's gravely mistaken. Because if you look, and
Mhm.
I just want to quickly make 2 points here. It was reported that, out of Geneva in the negotiations in Geneva, the Iranians thought they were winning Trump over. They
Yep.
really thought
Exactly.
that they thought that they were close. They thought that they could buy more time. And we have Witkoff and we have Kushner sitting in that room who really do not understand the nuances of diplomacy. They may not. And then we saw Oman race to the United States to say, hey, I don't think your guys are getting this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we flash back just a few weeks ago to Maduro, who also thought that he had won over. And the New York Times had a really good piece on this. They reported how Maduro was confident that he had won over Trump with his folksy manner, his concessions. And to Trump, he was insulted and he made up his decision based on Maduro going out and dancing. And
Literally, the Maduro dance video did it.
I think that did it. I really do. And I think that this is something that after watching Trump for 11, 15 years, you do not have to be a psychological profiler working in the basement of Quantico to understand this guy's psyche.
Mhm.
You do not have to do that. He will he only understands the language of dominance. That is it.
Yep.
Consistently we see from world leaders, business leaders, and even European leaders who are striking, frankly, the most delicate balance in this whole equation, think that by invoking the deal, they can win over Trump. That's not how the man operates. It is a myth, a self created myth that has to die now.
Very well said, man. You got Kimmy in there saying, "Well said, Adam." I agree. I mean, Donald, the way he's been working here, the egomania, the impulsivity, there's no like you said, he speaks in the language of dominance, but he also is surprised by other people's strength.
Right.
Like, when other people stand up, like that, for example, the Mark Carney speech was a domino effect that led to him backing away from uh, the Greenland, threats, right?
Yep.
Like, when he's approached with strength, like, right now, I think the reason why he started to get all scattered is Iran responded, like, he thought he would be able to pull a Venezuela.
Yeah.
I literally think by those attacks, those decapitation strikes, he thought, "Oh, we're gonna take out all the leadership, and then they're just gonna say, 'Oh, please, Sir Donald, like, give
Yep.
us,'" but this is a theocratic regime with entrenched views, not just about Trump, but the United States. And
Yes.
that was just not gonna happen with the IRGC and the security forces. It's just not. And you're right, like, the way I think they're shook, frankly, by Iran, the scale of Iran's retaliation, which we touched on with those maps, and I think they don't really know how to respond to that. But also, I think you're right. I think that the allies have to take a different approach to try to maybe persuade him in a different direction. But the thing is, now this is where you get to the point where things are out of your control. When
Yes.
you have done this, and now they've attacked Kuwait, they've attacked Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Now you're getting these other Arab states in the region. There's any number of things could go wrong. You already have Kuwait accidentally shot down US fighter jets.
Yes.
like, well, there's in war, so many mistakes could happen where this could proliferate beyond this. And of course, like people keep talking about Netanyahu in there. Yes, Netanyahu is first off just a horrific leader who's like again, I'm not being ageist or anything, but these are all men who aren't going to live that much longer in power, running the world towards chaos
Yep.
and destruction and without regard for the consequences. Trump does not have to deal with the consequences of this destabilization 20 years from now. He does not. So he does not care. He's thinking about winning the day, and and this is also what happens when you have an administration run by incompetent sycophants that are just running around saying, "Yes, sir. Everything you say is fantastic. This is a great idea." General Kane, who was out there with Pete Hegseth today defending this move, there was leaks out of the Pentagon with of him warning about it
Yes.
last week, the February 23rd was the story. And it's like now he's up there having to defend it. And and I wonder why I think we know why there was leaks.
Yeah.
I think we know that there was a military operation that was right about to happen. And I
Abs-
think that they were leaking, trying to warn the public about this. And the public, again, like you mentioned the polls, just 43% of Americans oppose it. Over 50% think Trump's more too willing to use military force. Again, you're just before you even respond, just on that point, like this has to be talked about. It's not a distraction. It's the story. It's
Yep.
it's it's a president who's out of control, who's moved beyond his mandate, who lied to the American people, who's pushing regime change war that is killing children right now.
Mhm.
A war of choice, not necessity.
A war of choice and not necessity is the perfect way to put it, because diplomacy had not run its course. And you've known me for a long time. I believe in a muscular foreign policy when it's warranted. And we did not run out the clock with diplomacy. And frankly, one of the craziest quotes that I've heard from Trump so far is the attack was so successful that it knocked out most of the candidates that could have replaced the regime. It's so successful that you killed the potential allies in this regime change, failed regime change. The regime has not changed. That
Exactly.
also we have to be very clear on.
Yes.
Despite pulling down statues, which I understand and support, and good for the Iranian people who are letting out decades of pent out anger, truly. And to that ultimate point, though, is when we're dealing with post justifications and warnings that were sent out in advance, we are dealing with a military, a Pentagon, whose brass has experience with fighting Iranian proxies. They
Yes.
know what they're capable of. They've lost friends, they've lost people under their command. They know this is different from Venezuela. And, it makes for a very, very I don't wanna give General Kane any sort of, props here because the process is so tr it opaque. Where could the military, this was launched from Mar-a-Lago with the you know what I mean? Like, there's classified information that they barely bothered to blur out on that. That yellow, background that you can see in some of those pictures, that's the highest level of code word classification, and it's happening in a private club. So, we're dealing with a degree of unseriousness that we are gonna pay for, and I think Ahmed, that what you just said, a lot of the people making the decisions here will not have to worry about the fallout. They won't have to worry about managing the complicated politics that are happening within the Sunni countries, in particular. The Sunni countries are no fan of Iran, but they also have a very delicate balance with their populations. And when you have high rise landmarks in Dubai being struck, that's going to have a political
Or
impact.
the airport.
Or the airport. Absolutely. And so we can talk about light footprint, pinpoint strikes, all of that. we have not begun to see the reverberations of what happened over the last 24, 48 hours. We have not even begun to see
No,
it.
exactly, and on the and it is a failed regime change, and you're right on that point as well. Catherine mentioned Iran's dispersed its leadership into several groups. Yes, there was actually the Ayatollah actually had four levels down levels of succession. So like they were prepped for this, and I also think there's speculation that he wanted this death. Like he didn't, not that he wanted to die right now, but like or expected today, but like rather than go into hiding, he's struggling with cancer. He was maybe expected to die within the next couple of years. Why he'd probably rather go out as a martyr, right? So maybe we gave them what they wanted as well. So it's like so many different layers to this. And you're right, Leslie. No one has a plan, and that's the problem. Is that Trump did not. He's not he's not a rational actor here. He's not a person who's thinking in terms of decades or thinking in terms of strategy. The literal we're polar opposite of Obama. Like we're literally still dealing with the backlash to Obama's brilliance and him get us electing the polar opposite of that man. And
And I know
now,
we want to switch to MAGA and the reaction to that soon, but I do want to emphasize one more point about how this is affecting the world order and Europeans in general. We have, Emmanuel Macron saying that he's establishing a nuclear steering group for Europe because they can no longer rely on the American nuclear umbrella. And I don't think that changes when Donald Trump is out of office. We also have German Chancellor Merz. He is part of this group. We are
yeah,
seeing Europe rearming because of the unreliability and instability of the United States. And that's how you lose the world, the the standards that most of us in the United States grew up with. That's how it's chipped away piece by piece. And
no,
the consequences
exactly.
will long outlive this administration.
No, exactly. And I know, we were talking about hopping off at 2, but if do you have a little bit more time?
I'd love, yeah, yeah. If you do, I know we got to wrap up soon, but yeah, if we can, yeah, I'd love to finish the conversation off strong.
Yeah, because it's going strong. Yeah, I think I got mine pushed back a little bit, so we're gonna keep going because we're getting into so many things that so many angles we will want to dive into here. Also, that note someone asked earlier about MAGA, so we could talk about the kind of retaliation, the impact on the base here. Um, you know, oh, Kevin said you're too kind on him, and he's a narcissistic nut job. Oh, I agree, he's a narcissistic nut job. You heard that from my voice as well. But yes, this is a betrayal of MAGA, of his base, of the American people, of the he promised, he lied repeatedly. And that's why again, I don't think it's a distraction at all. I think it's a deep political because this is different. Like the Epstein files is really damaging to him, but there's something else about war. There's something else about, the younger voters also opposed this. Like the people who are in line, like these are people's sons. These are people's families that could be sent to die. We have 4 people who have already died already. And Trump is speaking with, oh, likely more. Tells me maybe they know if there's more casualties already. They just haven't announced, frankly. The way he's talking about it makes me think there's more people who have already died. But this is an issue where the MAGA base is fracturing. Tucker Carlson spoke out and said, this is disgusting. I mean, he has different reasons for his opposition uh, you know, uh, to Israel and his pro Russia stances and stuff for the Iran thing. But he spoke out. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking out. You have so many different people speaking out. Um, it's really been a fractured coalition already up to this point, and it's going to continue to fracture heading into the midterms. Did you also see that as well? I've been making hammering the hammer that this is a weakening, desperate president that is seeking to project strength in foreign policy because he has none domestically.
Absolutely. And Leslie, I think you make a good point about Trump seeming to enjoy killing. He's from what we hear, he's disgusted by the visuals of it, but he's enamored with the power behind it. And that's what's dangerous. And when you don't have defined goals here like this, it encourages adventurism and risk because they need to report up that they're making progress. There's no end goal here. It it opens the door for tragedy. But in terms of MAGA, anecdotally, I spoke to 2 young men who were very MAGA curious over this past weekend, and Iran is 100% the final straw for them, you know?
Really?
It was 100% the final straw for them. These are people that really bought in to the idea that Biden and Harris were gonna send you off to World War III.
Hmm.
And for a lot of these folks, their formative years, a little younger than me, who actually participated in Iraq war debates and supported the invasion of Afghanistan strongly. Um, they grew up seeing nothing but chaos. They saw the heart of the insurgency. They know what forever war looks like. And to Trump 2024's credit, they did a magnificent job of convincing people that he was peace. And Maureen Dowd, Hillary the Hawk,
Oh, man.
Donald the Dove. I mean, we can go back for
The
forever.
most infamous headline of all time.
I have very little sympathy for the people that were hoodwinked because he was very clear about his bloodlust since the moment he walked down that escalator. Um, but that said, it worked. And the reality is different. They see that now. Sure, there is going to be a base of the MAGA hardcore. They will take that one chip out, they will put the new chip in, and they'll be fine. But a very critical portion of that base is going to be very turned off by this. And you can see it with polling with independents. 20% reports. If I could leave it at with in terms of what to watch for MAGA, a leading indicator, watch Trump's support amongst Republicans. Philip Bump had an article about this a couple months ago, and I think he made a really, really good point here. That's the most crucial polling number to watch. As Trump's support amongst Republicans softens, that's when the bottom falls out. That's when he loses Congress. And to that point, please, if you have thoughts about this, call them. Congress responds to phone calls. That is the most effective way to get answers from your representatives.
Yes, exactly, and you're spot on about that. We already see some, evidence that the Republican support is dropping, slightly, and also non-college voters, he's dropping with them, and that's a specific demographic as well that was drawn to this peace message. Again, it just also adds to the overall fact that liberals and his dissenters were right. His critics were right, and it validates for a lot of people that were warned that he was a liar and that he was lying to them, that it's yet another piece of the puzzle. Yet another domino has fallen. The promising of the Epstein files, promising of no new wars. It's just this administration or regime, frankly, and this president are a disinformation machine that are just all in it for their own power. And Americans can see through it. I think that you're right. This is going to be something that's going to drop his support even further. We could see him get to now the low 30s as opposed to the mid. And then he keeps this up. He really wants to get to that George W. Bush low of the 20s heading as he heads out. And again, we're in a midterm year. I know he thinks maybe, oh, he'll have war powers. He can pause the midterms. It's nonsense. It's not going to happen. We're not in a federalized system like that. It's all efforts to gaslight us and scare us. They're cooked. They're going to lose in the midterms, and now even bigger with this. And Democrats need to be bold. Don't focus so much on just the process. Yes, he didn't seek congressional authorization, but that's not the problem here. The problem here is it's a dumb war. It's a
Yeah.
stupid war that was not well thought out. So yeah, I mean, any final thoughts or anything else you got in your mind as we close out? Any other questions or anything from you guys down here, or what do you got?
Yeah, I would just say that this is going to be a very frustrating time for all of us who want to see some resolution. And the only piece of advice that I can give here is that this is going to take time. The reverberations are going to take time, you know. And if going back to the George W. Bush example, Iraq started falling apart in 2004, and he won re-election. In a very different environment. But as the economy started to fall apart, and then you start seeing those gas prices, to a lot of our fellow Americans, the economy is gas prices. So
Yep.
the political fallout, in addition to the geopolitical fallout, is enormous. It is enormous. And I'm frankly, I know this is a reckless administration, but I'm frankly shocked by the degree of recklessness because it truly spits on all of the lessons that we've learned over the global war of terror. Every single lesson. And I understand, I have good friends who unfortunately lost their lives in those conflicts. So I understand the hatred. I understand it. But if we want to handle this smart, we need serious people at the helm. And that's why
Yes.
we got and it starts with taking back Congress.
Very, very well said. I mean, that's really what this is. We need intelligent, sane, rational leadership. The recklessness is out of control, and now we're seeing deadly consequences to it. It's not. This is what happens when you remove the buffers and the guardrails that were surrounding Trump in his first term, and you get sycophants that enable him. You get foolish, deadly mistakes. So thank you so much for joining me, Adam. Great. We're gonna be talking. We talk offline, but we'll be doing more of these online. And I see you guys in the comments. We see Donda Wood appreciate the same response to this chaotic, inhumane, and painful time. Arlene said thank you. Others saying great conversation. Thank you guys for watching. That's exactly what we were hoping to do. We wanted to bring sane, balanced, rational discussion to this. We wanted to help you understand it. We didn't want to just jump into a quippy back and forth, like uh talking point machine back and forth, which we see a lot of other people do. We wanted to let you understand this. So I'm going to be publishing a write-up and a recording of this later. So if you want to go back and catch some of what we talked about, we put up maps, we dived into the politics. You got Adam out here talking about the Sunni Shia differences. We're going into all the foreign policy ramifications here, and I hope you learned a lot. I always learn a lot while talking to you, Adam. And before you guys go in the comments here, hit the like button on your way out. It boosts the post after when I post it later, so do that. And also subscribe to me at ahmedbaba.news. Become a paid subscriber if you can, and follow my brother over here, Adam Ali. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. We'll be doing this again.
I'd be happy to come back, brother. We always have great talks, and the audience here is great. So thank you, audience, as well. And looking forward to speaking again soon.
All right. Okay. See you, man. See you, everybody.
Thank you.